Well, and now we are going to have another powerful, brilliant woman. Now I'm very honored to introduce Jessica Brazier. She is the new VP and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for one of the largest employers in Florida. We are talking about AdventHealth. Jessica, I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. How are you doing?
Francis, it is my pleasure to be joining you today. And I have to say, I am truly enjoying all of the programming that's been put on so far. These are incredible women I'm surrounded by, and I'm learning so much.
Thank you. It has been quite an event, I think. All these women are extremely energetic, powerful. All the information they have been sharing has been mind-blowing from Deborah, from Tonya, from Michelle, and now you. I don't know if you can feel my excitement. I can't control myself, and now having you, it's an incredible treat. And let me ask you, because when we talk about Advent, since it's one of the largest employers. Every single company looks at you guys. Every single company wants to emulate what Advent is doing. And that's why it was so crucial for us to have you joining us today. Let me ask you, what is your main focus when it comes to your role as Advent Health's new Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer?
I'm really glad you asked because, especially in these times, so many of our guests have alluded to the interesting times we're living in as it relates to the pandemic. I really can't think of an industry where diversity, equity, and inclusion is more critical than in healthcare. And at Advent Health, our primary job is to deliver holistic care for patients, and that's regardless of age, race, gender, ethnicity, language. And so, what does this look like? How do we make sure that the diverse array of patients who come into our facilities every day feel like they're being cared for in the language that makes sense to them, in a way that's culturally responsive to their needs, in a way that makes them feel a sense of belonging, a sense of family, especially in what's their most vulnerable moment at times? And then on the other side, how do we ensure our team members, and these are the people delivering care, delivering wholeness, how do we make sure they reflect and represent the communities we serve? How do we make sure that once they are part of our team, they feel appreciated, valued, respected, included when they come to work to deliver this very important mission? So that's in essence what I am here for at Advent Health in partnership with our Chief Health Equity Officer. We're here to create an environment where we fully deliver on our mission. I lead the execution of our organization's diversity strategy, and I also provide oversight of those ongoing initiatives that help to provide inclusion for our team members. And I work closely with the leaders of our organization to make sure that all the strategies we put forward are sustainable and gain traction, and that we're monitoring them for impact.
Okay, thank you for that and congratulations because you have been on the post for how long? 90 days now?
I've been on for 90 days, hitting the ground running, especially in this current environment.
I love it. I love it. Well, and we are going to have this conversation also with Celeste Warren from Merck. Women inclusion is a business imperative. It's not a nice thing to have. It's just simply a business imperative. And we have concluded that if the CEO and the top tier of the company, the top leaders are not committed to this, nothing happens. So let me ask you, in the case of Advent Health, when it comes to your company's leadership, when it comes to your CEO, how do they support initiatives or efforts when it comes to the inclusion of women?
I'm really glad you asked. At Advent Health, the support for women starts at the very top. Our CEO has publicly stated that he is an ally in support of making sure that we have women representation all throughout our organization. And here's a little bit of context about the healthcare industry. Healthcare, like a few other industries, education is one of them, is a primarily dominated industry by women. However, when you look at leadership representation in healthcare, you don't see that same representation of women. While we're about 80% of the healthcare workforce in leadership, that number is skewed the other way, for male leadership being the primary force there. And what our leaders believe at AdventHealth is, since we are in the business of delivering care to communities, we want to reflect and represent the diversity of the markets we serve. We believe that we are better at delivering care when we do that. For example, not too long ago in the 1970s, with the women's health movement, you may recall that most of the information and research about women's bodies, women's reproductive systems, it was researched and published and communicated by men. And we've seen so much progress over the years in seeing the value that women physicians, women leaders in healthcare can make when we're communicating about our bodies in our terms and in ways that are really reflective of our experiences. And that's why we are committed to making sure we have a diverse leadership team that can be a voice to what women's needs are in our community. And our CEO has really set the tone for that all throughout our organization. And we've seen over the last 4 years, I'll say, an increase of 30% of the number of women in leadership, which is very significant in this day and age. And we've still got more work to do. I'd like to say that the journey is not over and we're still pressing toward the mark.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Is at the end of the day, we need to mirror our consumer, or the amount of the percentage of when we talk about our consumer, we need to have that same representation in the top tiers. But the thing is, like, companies are starting that journey basically now, or have started that journey in the past, 5, 10 years. So we cannot presume, or we cannot expect companies to remove men and then place women. It has to be a movement. It's a journey, and companies like Advent accept the challenge and are moving forward when it comes to mirroring their consumer, their patients within their top tiers of their company, of its company. Let me, now that we are talking about women in the top tiers in Advent Health, tell me, how are you approaching growth when it comes to women in leadership roles in your organization?
I have to tell you, it takes a lot of intentionality. And again, this is sponsored by the very top of our organization. It's everything from HR programs, like mentorship programs, that make sure women get the leadership development opportunities they need to reach their highest potential. It's even having targeted interventions with your succession planning so that you're identifying potential women leaders early, and that you're making sure that they have what they need wrapped around them so that they can have visibility into their career pathways that take them to the top. And that's the level of intentionality that we've been implementing at Advent Health. I have to tell you, we've also started a women's leadership forum, which is a platform for women to foster growth and development of other female leaders. So it's by women and for women. And that has been especially meaningful, especially as we grow the space for women, and those who have come before can illuminate what it's like for those coming next.
You have said two things that are critical, and I need to address them again. One thing was that you have to be, as a leader, intentional, and mostly when it comes to your succession planning and your pipeline. That's critical. And it's also critical to have an ERG or a program that it's created for women, but it's also very critical, and I know that it's a fact for you, for your organization. It's not about having a women's program just for women. You need to, if we are talking about inclusion, you need to allow your men to also participate in those kind of programs and be part of them, because then again, it beats the purpose when it comes to inclusion. So thank you for sharing those two practices with us. Um, when we talk about women inclusion, sometimes companies think about, okay, this is about women inclusion within my company walls, but women inclusion has to go outside the company. And it also needs to, that value or that mission or that mindset needs to go outside your organization when it comes to women-owned companies. So please, Jessica, share with us why it's so critical for companies like Advent to partner with women-owned companies, like, for example, Women Who Lead.
I'm so glad you asked that. In recent years, we're seeing women being more and more empowered, whether it's personally, whether it's socially, whether it's professionally. And this empowerment, it's been translated even into business ownership. Even in the midst of the pandemic, which has taken, we all know, Tanya talked about this earlier, as well as other presenters, it's taken a toll on women on the workforce. We've still seen women start their own successful businesses during this time, in the most difficult of times, demonstrating the resilience, ingenuity, and just pure passion of this demographic. And many times we know that women can bring that fresh perspective to problem solving. We talked about that a little earlier when women were in control of talking about their own bodies, what that meant for the healthcare industry. Now, as I answer this question, I think I mentioned to you when we last talked, I thought back to my first internship in college when I worked with a global nonprofit, CARE. And CARE, they do work for underdeveloped countries, and it's all around economic empowerment. And would you believe that CARE, when they're thinking about how to invest their strategies, where to invest the dollars or the education initiatives, their number one target is on girls and women, because the research has shown over and over again, when you invest that dollar in a girl or in a woman, she shares it with her children, with her community, and she amplifies and maximizes the impact that dollar can have, the impact that education can have as she shares all of what she learns with others. And that's the same thing we see at AdventHealth. You mentioned earlier, we are one of the largest employers in Florida. As we partner with suppliers and vendors, we are being very conscious of making sure we have a vast array of representation in the ranks of those who are providing our PPE and our equipment. And that in turn helps to make sure that there's empowerment within our communities. And we truly believe that the health of our communities, as well as the health of our individuals, is part of our broad mission of holistic care.
I have one last question for you, and you're going to love this question because it's directly related to your business and industry. Everybody is talking about this particular topic, and that particular topic is vaccination. Everybody's talking, and I think, Laura, I think that the question nowadays is, did you get the vaccine? Everybody's talking about that. Which one did you get? Let me ask you, Jessica, as a healthcare company, we know that vaccines are at the top of your mind and of everyone at AdventHealth. When it comes to women, why it is so important to get women vaccinated?
Another question that I am so glad you asked. We talked about just now in my previous response how women, When they're empowered, they have the potential to influence others in very relational, organic ways. And that's the same thing we're seeing with the vaccine. Women are often the CEOs of their households. They are those who are balancing the finances or the kids or the family's healthcare. And we are seeing that when women are bought into the vaccination, others immediately follow behind. Now, here's the catch. We've been doing research with AdventHealth, with our consumer studies group, and we've also been monitoring the research that's broader in our nation right now. And we're seeing that women tend to have more hesitancy around the vaccine, as do a few other populations. People of color tend to show some hesitancy around taking the vaccine as well. And the reasons are often legitimate. They may be worried about the pace at which the vaccine was created. For many women, they brought up reproductive reasons or fertility reasons. Will I be able to have children safely if I take the vaccine? And one thing we've been working hard to do at Advent Health is to see how we could help women feel more confident about this decision by providing accurate, credible information that might help. For example, leading orgs that specialize in reproductive health, like the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, they continue to recommend the vaccine even for pregnant individuals. And they show that there's no evidence that the vaccine can lead to a loss of fertility. So that's the encouraging kind of information that we've been trying to share with women, because we believe that as women are at the center of their homes, and if they're empowered with correct information and accurate information, we can more increasingly beat this pandemic and get toward the place where we can all come together again and have this conference in person in coming years.
Jessica, I'm so grateful to you that you were able to join us and share Advent Health's best practices when it comes to women inclusion. As I said when I introduced you today, it's very critical to look up to companies like Advent, who are always game changers and ahead of the curve when it comes to many business practices and in particular women inclusion. Thank you and the best of luck in your new post.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor to speak with you.